Welcome back to my Harry Potter series, and this time we're talking about Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, the very first PG-13 Harry Potter, as well as the first Harry Potter to no longer be scored by John Williams. This time, Patrick Doyle took over those reins. This was directed by Mike Newell and told the story of the legendary Tri-Wizard Tournament and the Goblet of Fire that spits out names of people it's chosen to be a champion. And despite the fact that Harry Potter is not yet of age to compete in said tournament, his name comes out of the Goblet of Fire, and now he has to step up and try to prove himself while also solving the mystery of why he's even being included in this tournament, while also dealing with an entire school who are looking down on him for the fact that he even gets to participate in said tournament because he's not old enough yet. So this was the first Harry Potter movie to open without the evil, vile Dursleys. Harry is now away from them, and thank God for that. Those people are ass, man. Every time I see them in these movies, it's just like, oh, you stay away from my Harry Potter. He's a good man. You stay away from that boy. We'll talk more about horrible, vile characters in my review for the Order of the Phoenix, but the Harry Potter series has some truly awful people inhabiting it. And that family, man, that family is just... they're the devil. But this movie gets to the action really quickly. Harry, Hermione, and Ron are whisked away to watch the World Cup of Quidditch, in which Death Eaters eventually take over the area, destroying everything. There are aspects of this scene that felt very abrupt, and my only way of explaining it could be that perhaps they weren't quite sure how dark they could really go yet and get away with, because this is the first PG-13 Harry Potter, and it's easily the darkest one we've had so far in regards to more mature content. So this whole sequence where the Death Eaters are destroying everything and burning everything, it felt very rushed. This movie also introduced the character of Cedric Diggory, played by Robert Pattinson. That's right, before he was Edward, he was also in the Harry Potter series. And something I haven't really talked about yet in these reviews is how awesome the postal service in the Harry Potter universe is. The fact that letters are delivered by owls. Our postal service here where I live is atrocious. I will often get other people's mail. I will often have to go to the post office to retrieve my mail because they simply didn't deliver it. My word, how much I would give to have Hedwig as my postal service. How great would that be? So Goblet of Fire absolutely explored puberty more. Harry and Hermione and Ron are starting to get a little older. Little cute looks at other students is now turning into something a little more important than that. There's a dance in this film. All of a sudden pressure is mounted on the students about who they're going to ask. And Goblet of Fire wisely plays much of this for comedy. It is not taken overly seriously. Whenever something more dramatic happens in regards to the whole boy-girl situation that goes on throughout this movie, it feels warranted and it feels deserved, but the majority of it is played for humor. And so as an older person, I can watch this and be like, man, I remember trying to do that. Shit. I don't want to ever even think about doing that again. There's this great scene where Harry's like, I think I'd rather face the dragon again than ask a girl to this dance. And that's one of the biggest reasons why the Harry Potter universe, and this movie in particular, works so well. Because they relate everyday, average situations that we can relate to, while somehow throwing that magical fantasy element into it. Harry would rather face a dragon again than ask a girl to the dance. This movie also introduced Brendan Gleeson as Alastar Moody, an extremely eccentric teacher with a deep knowledge of the dark arts. He used to train people in defense against the dark arts, and so he wants to teach these kids how to defend themselves from things that he's pretty sure are coming. And there's some really entertaining sequences, as well as actually some very powerful sequences in which he attempts to explain to these kids some of the forbidden curses. So even though Harry is experiencing some blossoming feelings of youth for some other students that he's not sure of and he's never felt before, in a hilarious scene, he is absolutely not very amused by Hagrid's newfound love.
I thought perhaps you had forgotten me.
Couldn't forget you, lamb.
What is it you wanted to show me?
But as I'm sure a lot of you know, if you ever grew up with somebody, were friends with said person, and then you start going through puberty, that's when complications arise. And in this film, Harry and Ron get into an argument over a misunderstanding. And so it also explores that aspect of friendship as well. Very well, in fact. But that also leads me to one thing that confused me about this movie, and I feel that it was perhaps a mistake of direction. Something wasn't communicated properly to Rupert Grint as Ron Weasley in the scene where Harry in the Tri-Wizard Tournament is facing off against the dragon. Ron is cheering for Harry, and it was just so strange because he's very pissed at Harry at this time, and I don't think that communication communication was made to Rupert Grint that no, you're supposed to still kind of be upset with Harry. There's never a cutaway to Ron more upset when Harry defeats the dragon. He's just perfectly fine with it all, and it seems kind of contrary to what Ron was feeling at the time. That being said though, the start of this Triwizard Tournament and watching Harry face off against that dragon was so much fun. You feel for this kid so much. He is very much so the normal average kid that we can all relate to. He's the Peter Parker. You know, he's the guy that has the everyday problems but is also facing these otherworldly situations, and it is an absolute blast to watch. Eventually, just like in real life when friends are arguing, they eventually make up, and Ron and Harry make up in this movie, which leads to some really truly hilarious scenes when Ron gets the outfit that his parents want him to wear to the dance, and oh my god. It's just these characters, you know? I mean, it's so easy for this to become melodramatic. It's so easy for this to become a soap opera and for you to just be like, oh, look, they're all in love now. But it's not like that because they play it with such maturity. As I said, a lot of it is played for humor. It's not played overly serious. And so you can relate to it more because you understand in retrospect how some of those situations you go through in youth are very funny. The whole dance sequence is done really well. You get the first time where Harry actually looks at Hermione and perhaps sees a woman. And it's captured beautifully. It's not captured as, oh my god, look how attracted I am to this person. It's, oh my god, look how beautiful you are. It's just done perfectly. They really had to be careful with that scene, but they captured that tone really well. And that whole dance sequence is very funny. I love how Newell is getting really into the dancing, like he's taking it super seriously. The next challenge involves having to stay underwater for an hour. Harry ingests this plant that allows him to grow gills, and we get this really terrific scene where he rescues not just his friend, but the other person's friend as well. Harry's the best of the best. He's a true hero. I love this character. It's a great example for kids. And that's another thing about this movie that I really appreciate. There's a line towards the end where Dumbledore says it's time for you to choose between what is right and what is easy. And this is a fantastic message because that is what we all face in everyday life. And it's really good for kids to learn this in a way that they can enjoy and entertain, but also it teaches them an important message. This movie does struggle, though, with a lot of exposition storytelling. There's a lot of dreams, a lot of visions. You can tell they're trying to cram a big book into one movie. In fact, at one point, they were actually thinking of splitting it into 2 films, but gratefully they didn't do that. So the final challenge in the Triwizard Tournament is the maze from The Shining. Let's hope Jack Nicholson isn't in there hiding somewhere, because that would really suck. There is one thing I want to say about this, though. The entire sequence is really tense. I really, really love it. But imagine that you were actually the audience watching this tournament. Once everyone goes in, the trees encapsulate them, and I guess the crowd just kind of sits there and waits. No one would actually go to that. Imagine going to the Super Bowl, and then like this big drapery just covers the entire field, and you just sit there hoping that the football game is a lot of fun. But you can't see it. That being said, though, what we get to see as audience members, not the people there for the tournament, but us, it's awesome. This is extremely important for Harry. Voldemort appears. Voldemort is finally there in his form, played by Ralph Fiennes brilliantly. We learn more about Harry's parents, and we get our first glimpse of epic showdowns that are to come when Harry faces off very briefly against Voldemort, and Cedric Diggory does die. But what was so powerful about this moment was when Harry's parents were at his sides trying to help him defeat Voldemort, trying to help him, and it was just like, oh my gosh, this is so great. It reminded me of when Gohan and Cell are doing a Kamehameha wave against each other, and Goku is right there by Gohan trying to inspire him. I would be the only person to see a comparison with Dragon Ball Z and Harry Potter, wouldn't I? This whole thing ends, and Daniel Radcliffe is really magnificent towards the finale of this movie. He gives a really good performance, and I felt so much for him in this film. He really, really sold all of that important needed emotion. Dumbledore's eulogy for Cedric Diggory was very touching. Everything about the way this movie ends is a very good hint at what's to come. Some truly emotional shit's gonna go down, and they pulled it off again. Another really good Harry Potter movie. I'm going to give Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire an A-. Guys, thank you so much for continuing to go on this journey with me as I watch all the Harry Potter films leading up to Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. Coming up very soon, Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix. You guys are the best. Thank you so much as always for watching. And if you like this, you can click right here and get Stuckmanized.